Hi everybody, in this video I'm going to show you how to actually set up your forms, adding questions, scoring, adding answers, etc. So here's the form that we started in the last video. Now when you get into here, the first thing you need to do is actually change it to a quiz. If you click on the cog at the top right hand side, go to quizzes and you can make this a quiz. So you need to make sure this one here is ticked. You can forget the next section. Now you can choose whether a student gets their grade straight after the submission or whether you're going to release them to the students. If you turn that on, the students will only be able to get their grades once you release those grades to them. So I'm going to give it immediately just for now. There's a few options at the bottom, for example, students, if you hover over this it tells you what they are. So any student questions that they've missed, they can see whether they can see the correct answers. Remember that in one of the other videos I showed you how you can actually show them what the correct answers are after they've sat that, and what the points are for each question. So when they have a question, how many points that question is worth. This is quite useful because it gives the students an idea of how many options they can actually have. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Now you might want to give a quick description just here, and then here are the questions. This is your mini bar here. If you click on plus, it'll add a new question. There's lots of different things that it can have. I can take in questions from other Google Forms that you've created previously. I can add pictures in, so we could have a question about a picture or a YouTube video that they've got to watch first. You can add different sections in if you want to. So for example, a section, you could have an introduction section. This could be all about networking. Then you could have another section about, let's say, the CPU. There's different parts of computing. So that just makes it easier for you. Now, if I'm going to add a question into this, I'm just going to click a plus and it adds my new question. I add my question here, and just like I can in Google Classroom, I can move this around. So I'm going to put this into the networking question. So I'm going to put which is not a type of network. There's my question. I can edit that at a later date and I can start adding my options. So we have bus networks, we have star networks, we have ring networks. That's the incorrect answer line, and we can add as many of these as we want. Notice every time I type one, if I want to add a new answer, I can either just click here and start typing, or I can click enter on my keyboard and it will add as a new one. There is an option to add a little image with each of these types of questions. Just noticing this is a multiple choice question. We'll come back to that in a minute. We can make the question required or not. That means whether the students actually have to answer the question or not. So they can skip it if they want to. If we make it required, they've got to make an answer. To set up the answers, we click on the answer key button. This toggles us between the two views. This is your answer view, and if we click done, it takes us back to the question view. Notice how we can't edit the question when we're in the answer view. We can decide how many points we want it to be. It shows you the total points at the top, so that's the total points your quiz is out of, and here you can set the correct or incorrect answers. So mine is line, that's not a type of network. So in here we could put whenever the user puts an incorrect answer, we can give them some feedback and say the only types of network are. So a line network is not correct. On the correct answer, we can put anything we want as well. So, well done, you have shown a good understanding of. You don't need to put an answer in there, but it just helps. The perfect thing that you can actually set up here is you can actually link to YouTube videos or a document. So if a student's got that wrong, when they're looking at their results, you can actually give them some therapy. So all you need to do is click on this here, and as we've done before, you can search for a video. So if I just go for OCR, computer science, networks, we can see what comes up. I'm obviously not going to watch these. You might want to watch these separately. Types of networks, let's have that one in there. So if they get that question wrong, that they're going to be shown a video which you can help for therapy. You could also link that to a document or a website or anything that you want. So they've got feedback for correct answers, feedback for incorrect answers. I think I put that in the correct answer one actually, but that doesn't matter for now. So if I click done, it will take you back to the question, and there's our question. To delete a question, all we need to do is click delete if we don't want it. I find it quite useful if you've got a lot of questions which are similar to duplicate the question. So if we duplicate that now, it's going to give you exactly the same question, and you could just change the options if you wanted to. So that is a multiple choice question. These are the best questions to use, generally speaking, in a Google quiz or an assessment. Checker boxes are good as well because you can have more than one option, more than one answer. So let's say that these two were incorrect. We could change that to 2 points, and then they'd have to click the correct options where there's more than 2 options. Just be careful with this one because it is worth 2 points. The students will not get 1 point if they were to, let's say for example, only get one of them correct. They'd have to get both of those answers correct to get those 2 marks. So that is that question. I'm going to add another question now here, so you can remember this is how you add a question. Now it's accidentally put it into the CPU section. I wanted that in the networking. Remember, I can drag that up here and I can edit it. So there are other types of questions. You can have a scale question. So they could have a scale. It could be 1 to 5 with good, okay, average, poor, very poor. That's particularly useful if you're doing some kind of what's your opinion question. There's a multiple choice, so you can have multiple columns, multiple rows. So for example, if I put row 1 just as an example, if I just put column 1, I can add more columns, column 2, column 3, just add a few more rows, row 2, row 3, it's automatically doing that for us. We'll require them to do that. Now I'm actually just going to flick to the responses and send this just so you can see what this is looking like. I'm going to come back to this in a later video just so that you can see that, but if I just put that into there, you should see what this is looking like. Oops. So there it is, and we've got multiple options where they can tick 1 in each column. So there are multiple types of questions. We sometimes use a short answer question as well. So this might be, what type of network is the cheapest? Now, they're going to be able to type something in here. So we're going to make this required as we did before. In the answer key, this is where you can actually set the different options for the students. So for example, bus is actually the cheapest for the type of network, but you've got to be really careful here because it doesn't recognise capital letters. If they spell it wrong, they won't get the mark for it either. So if you've got something which is more challenging in spelling, you might want to consider that, but it is actually quite good for if you want to ask them about how to spell a keyword. It's quite a nice question. So if I add feedback in here, if you remember, the correct answer is bus. Notice how there is not an incorrect or a correct answer here. If I just save that there and click done, if I just refresh this now, you'll see that question appear at the bottom. There it is. So if I was to type something correct, it will tell me it's correct. But if I did something slightly incorrect, like put a space, it would tell you, I mean, I have to answer all of these first, but it would tell you, unfortunately, that is incorrect. And it's just worth noticing that as well. So I'll submit that, view my score, and you can see here that it's told me it's incorrect, even though it's correct. And I'll show you in the next video how to look at scores, how to change answers, but that's just really important to know that. So there are other questions that you can do. There are paragraph questions. These paragraph questions allow you to mark these later. I don't generally tend to use the answer key for these because it's really important that in a paragraph question you're probably marking these. If I change these now, there are a few others like Dropbox. You can get them to upload a file if you wanted to mark it. You can get them to choose a date and time. So what date did the Battle of Hastings happen on, or what year, and you can get them to try and input a year if you wanted to. So that's quite useful if you wanted them on a date type of question. And then finally there's a drop down question. So you just add lots of different options on this question, and if I just save that now, if I go back to the quiz, I forgot it'll only let me do it once, but it will cause a drop down for you, so the user will be able to drop down like a menu like this, and they'll see all the different options and they can select one from that drop down menu. So you might have a type of question where you want them to look at a photograph and comment about that photograph. So I can add an image. I can upload or can find one on the internet by using by URL. If you've got Google Photos, you can find one from there, or Google Drive, or you can just do a Google image search. For now, I'm going to do a Google image search. So I'm going to search for, let's go for a star network topology. So because it is a networking question, there's one. I quite like the look of that one there. So if I click on that, click insert, you'll see it will put the picture, it will save it and put the picture into my into here. There it is. It's not quite put it in the place I wanted it to go, but it doesn't matter. Underneath it I could then add a question and say something on the lines of, in the picture above, what type of network is it? It's exactly the same with YouTube videos. If you click on YouTube videos, you can find a URL which they have to watch something and then answer questions about that video. That can be quite useful if you set them a video for homework. It just shows that they've actually watched that video. You can add text in and titles and description if you want to give them more information, but that's basically how you set up a quiz. You can move things around, and then, as we said in the last video, this will appear here in their stream, in their classwork stream, and they can click on that. Once they've clicked on it, it will take them directly to the form. Well, I've already responded to that, but the beauty of this is they'll be able to see their scores, what they've answered and what they've not answered correctly. In the next video, I'm going to very quickly show you how to go about assessing responses and collecting those responses in, and how to send that to students as well.